Hello and welcome to this, the semi-finals of Grand Prix Providence. We have, well, one of the favourites going into this tournament. They had to go undefeated in this Swiss today in order to make it through to the draft stages. But Owen Turtenwald, William Jensen and Reed Duke up against Lucas Muxi, LiZi Yao and Haoran Ling. We're going to be kicking things off with Owen Turtenwald's matchup against Lucas Muxi, and this is going to be kind of an interesting one. We have a super large difference in terms of overall experience between these teams. Turtenwald's team, well, you know, they've got assorted Team GP wins in addition to all of their other silverware. And on the other side of the table, this is the first team draft from the other side of things.
Yeah, it looks like Owen's going to be on the classic Vampires. Lucas with a very nice 3-drop, though. Ranging Raptors, just a premium dinosaur.
Yeah, and it's the ideal blocker here, and it means that Owen Turtenwald brickwalled for that turn, definitely doesn't want to attack into it, even with a trick, giving the extra land early on, not what you want to be doing against a red-green dinosaurs list, and no other play for him, potentially holding a trick, but New Horizons, meaning those ranging Raptors are 3-4, and at 3-4 they can really start applying some pressure to Owen's life total.
Yeah, honestly, Lucas's deck looking wonderful here.
New Horizons, of course, especially good in this kind of a team draft format where you may be scrabbling a little bit to put things together. And, oof,
oh my
gosh,
this
is the way that Lucas will have looked for this to play out. There was Vampire Zeal there to potentially win that fight, but a pounce beforehand not only deals with the Vampire, also triggers that Enrage and means that Lucas able to fetch up another land. Great start here against Owen Turtenwald, who's kind of on the back foot here. Third seed, so the Peach Garden Oath will be going second in all of their matches, and Pterodon Knight with no friends, currently looking comparatively small compared to the now 3-4 Raptors on the other side of the battlefield.
Yeah, the Raptors just putting in amazing work. Again, that uncommon, just as a 2-3 for 3 with that ability would already be above par, but of course, back it up with any tricks and pump effects like that New Horizons into Pounce, and Lucas just well on his way to victory.
Yeah, no blocks here for Turtenwald, just having to take the hit here. And what's the follow-up? It's going to be something big. Well, that's one way to do it. When your opponent is just hitting 4 mana and you've got 6-7 mana going on, there's no reason to hang about. Sun-Crowned Hunters coming down, the 5-4 with Enrage. All of the creatures on Lucas' side of the battlefield do have Enrage, and the Enrage on this one, whenever the Hunters take damage, that 5-4 will be dealing 3 damage straight to Turtenwald's dome.
Yeah, that Ranging Raptors, though, just propelling Lucas way far ahead. Remember, Pounce is a fight ability, so the Queen's base soldier did fight with the Ranging Raptor, letting Lucas get that other land, and now, you know, with already 7 mana, playing the 6 drops while Owen over here on the other side. Oh, with a Hostage Taker, though, Tim.
Hostage Taker, crucially, on the splash. Owen Turtenwald, he's picked up a few non-basic lands in order to make sure that he's able to play some of the cards that he was ultimately kind of just making sure weren't in the draft for his opponents. And there he was able to utilize his extra mana from Unknown Shores to cast the Hostage Taker. And at some point, he'll be able to cast that Raptors just fine.
Yeah, Hostage Taker just probably the best rare in the format. If Lucas has any other removal spell, he's going to want to use it this turn to get rid of the Hostage Taker, because as soon as Owen hits his 6th land, he's almost assuredly just going to play that Sun-Crowned Hunters. Remember, while Hostage Taker has not cast the creature, or whatever it's taken, it's still vulnerable to getting that creature back. But if Owen hits the 6th land, just jams the Sun-Crowned Hunter, well, then that's just going to be permanently on his side.
Yeah, Hostage Taker, super powerful. And here, a smart, probably quite late pickup in the form of that Unknown Shores, meaning that where Owen had done a little bit of hate drafting, he'd taken a card that is not quite in the colors that he's ultimately ended up in, able to cast it just a little bit later than normal, but with a card like Hostage Taker, if you're casting it on turn 5 rather than turn 4, certainly no big deal. Ultimately, you kind of want to wait for a good target anyway.
Yeah, that's a funny interaction here. If Owen gets to cast that Sun-Crowned Hunters off of that Hostage Taker, the Pterodon Knight's actually going to gain flying.
And worth noting that William Jensen has already picked up the first game win here in these semi-finals. Peach Garden Oath, they've not done any losing today. They've got no intention of starting now.
Yeah, Lucas had an amazing start, but just one removal spell for the Sun-Crowned Hunter, and got nothing else going on, appears.
Yeah, a little flooded, if anything. And while the red-green dinosaurs deck typically does have potent high end to its curve, sometimes you just draw all of the acceleration and none of the creatures, and that means that he may find himself in a tough spot here.
Yeah, Owen probably asking himself, well, maybe he has a snapping sail back here. He just passed after attacking even, when an attack doesn't look that great.
So 3 damage on the ground coming through. Pterodon Knight not aided with a dinosaur just yet. Post-combat, there's the Raptor's companion. Didn't need flying as there were no blockers that turn anyway. More lands on the other side of the battlefield. We've got something going on here, though. Hijack.
Interesting.
This is kind of cool. So once the once the hijacking has happened, look who gets to recast their dinosaur. That one of the cutest interactions I've seen in this format.
I've actually never seen that before in this format. I mean, of course, the format is so fresh, but that was a wonderful way for Lucas to get back in the game. You notice Lucas waited until he had that 6 mana after casting the hijack, so 9 mana total to be able to make that play. Wow.
I love it. All right, so we've got a real game on our hands here. Let's see what Owen's going to do with his mana. 4 mana. He has Ixalan's Binding in order to take out the big raptors without having to deal with Enrage. Gets his hits in here. Currently winning the damage race, but we will see whether or not Lucas has something to say about that. I think there's more land coming through here.
Yeah, Lucas
Not
unfortunately flooding.
Oh, that hijack play was sweet.
Life total's falling very, very quickly here in this match. Owen now in the lead after having one more removal spell for that huge creature.
Everyone's got plenty of lands, but, well, Owen does not want to have to wait around for another turn, firing off 3 points of damage just to close things out there. And Owen Turtenwald also picking up game 1 against Lucas Lee. William Jensen 1-0 up also. Reed Duke, he's had this happening all day for him. His teammates just winning games so quickly that he may be able not to get the entire match in. We're going to get a chance to jump across and maybe see a little bit of Reed in just a moment as these players go to their sideboards.
Yeah, and hopefully they're going to have some pretty good sideboards here as a team draft. You know, you're going to take the sideboard cards a little higher than you would normally.
So I like Reed's deck quite a bit. He's on Red-Blue Pirates, and he's got all of the hits here, but he's taken a big chunk of damage early doors from the Merfolk list of Haoran Ling. A lot of evasion for the Merfolk, and ultimately at this point he's been able to go wide enough that it means that Reed Duke very much on the defensive here, even though he's got some creatures that aren't really put together for that. His Headstrong Brute is not much known for blocking.
Yeah, I said that the team draft decks were probably going to be lower in power level than the team sealed, but so far from what we've seen of these two players, or these two matches anyways, between these two teams, you know, it looks very, very similar in power level.
Now, Reed really being put to task here if he's going to find a way out of this one, decides that he's better off attacking than leaving things because neither of those creatures particularly straightforwardly able to do any blocking. Of course, Headstrong Brute, it's pretty simple, simply cannot block. For Dreamcaller Siren can block, but can only block creatures with flying, and that means that blocking options comparatively limited there. Life total's 3 to 5. There must be something coming from Reed Duke here. Maybe a Siren's Call to flicker that Dreamcaller Siren, tap down a couple of attackers, might be a nice one.
Yeah, we'll see what Haoran wants to do here as, well, both players are being super aggressive, and, you know, we've talked about it a lot. This format is just very, very aggro. Players kind of ignoring each other's creatures and just going to the face.
Well, I mean, Reed knows that he's got to try and keep up with his teammates and if he wants to get his game wins in. All right, Ling's got 4 mana here. What are we going to see? Jade Guardian, so that potentially another +1/+1 counter going somewhere. I don't think that Ling has any intention of letting this game go on for more than just this turn if he can help it. All right, 2 mana. What are we going to see? There is a Siren's Ruse. This a lovely play, but...
Perilous Voyage from Ling, though, in response to the Ruse.
So this would bounce the Dreamcaller Siren before it gets a chance to get flickered by the Siren's Ruse. Does Reed Duke have anything to say about that one, or is he going to pick up a loss for the Peach Garden Oath in this first game of his best of 3?
Yeah, just one more land from Reed and be able to recast it because that creature has flash, but he's only on 5 mana, so after paying the 2 for the Siren's Ruse, doesn't have the mana to recast.
And I think that this is a lethal attack coming through here unless there's even more tricks from Reed Duke. All right. We have first blood for the team on our right of Li, Yao, and Ling. It turns out the Peach Garden Oath not completely unstoppable. And we get a chance to jump over and see a bit of William Jensen's match. So he is on blue-black Pirates. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, red-white aggro with a relatively strong dinosaur bent.
It looks like the Kite Sail Freebooter ate potentially a slash of talons there. The Deadeye Tormentor getting rid of a Legion Judgment.
And still a blocker on the ground for Yao, so that a nice one. Sky Terror in the air, getting in for a couple of points a turn. William Jensen, though, he's got a full grip. He's got plenty to work with here. He's not going to be missing land drop anytime soon, but also he's got spells to play along with. He's also a deck that can make use of Siren's Ruse from time to time. For now, though, just getting all of the 2-power pirates on the battlefield. Still going to be taking 2 in the air from that Sky Terror. Flying and Menace, a pretty potent combination.
Yeah, just a very hard creature to block. Maybe the hardest creature to block in this format.
It's definitely up there. I mean, there's a few unblockable creatures that might have something to say about that, I guess. Territorial Hammer Skull coming down, and that one definitely makes blocking fiddly. Also, just compared to the size of William Jensen's creatures, matches up very nicely indeed.
Yeah. Huey's going wider here, while Yao is going just a little bit bigger. Red-White's not known for the dinosaurs as large as, say, the red-green, but still can do a lot of bigger work.
So Siren's Ruse here, a nice little value play to force an additional discard from Ji Le Yao.
Yeah, he actually gets to draw a card, too, as well, that is a pirate.
Oh, yeah, there's plenty of pirates in Jensen's deck. Now, obviously, because this was team draft rather than team sealed, it did work out that these players didn't have the opportunity to say, I'm definitely going to be in this deck, you're definitely going to be in that one, because those are my preferences while splitting a pool. But there were still, obviously, preferences to see. Contract killing, clearing a path a little bit, and getting some treasure for Jensen, who is intent on keeping this a race. 12 to 12.
With that contract killing, I think Huey is definitely pulling ahead here, and still with multiple cards in hand.
2 copies of the Sky Terror there.
And notably does not get reduced from the Kinjali's Collar, but presumably Yao going to have some other nice creatures to lower the cost on those.
Kinjali's Collar has gained Yao a fair amount of life here, just blocking each and every turn, matching up very nicely against all the 2-power creatures that Jensen has to deploy.
I think Yao would really like to see like a Shining Aerosaur here, but it might be too late at this point as William Jensen's just pulling further and further ahead with smaller creatures.
Interloper there does successfully explore, and Jensen now with a decision as to whether or not he wants to leave Siren Lookout on top or maybe go for something a little bit more impressive. The Menace will certainly be relevant here. 3/3 Menace, a nice one to push through those final points. And the Lookout does go to the graveyard, so a fresh draw from Jensen. I like the ability to filter draws just a little bit, and wow, we get another discard being forced here by William Jensen. The first Deadeye Tormentor, not that scary. Flicker it, all right, maybe. Cast another one. At some point, running out of cards in hand, a very real concern for Yao here.
Yeah, you got to imagine Yao's got some expensive cards left in his hand.
Oof, Unfriendly Fire. He didn't have the mana to cast it, so it ends up going to the graveyard. And in a race situation, that Unfriendly Fire could have been gigantic. Though one must think that if that's what's getting discarded, whatever's left must be pretty impressive too.
Wow, Yao's still getting in for 4 points of damage.
Interesting. I guess that must be a top deck from Yao. I can't honestly imagine keeping it around over the top of an Unfriendly Fire. That the Fire Shrine Keeper, you can Menace 1/1 that you can pay 8, sacrifice it to deal 3 damage to 2 target creatures, a long way off that 8 mana.
Yeah, so Yao either has a pump or burn spell in hand, or just realizes that he can't race the number of pirates that Huey has, even if he wanted to trade his 2 Sky Terrors away for, multiple 2/2s. Huey still has more creatures, and so either he has a trick that can lead for the win the following turn, or has to go and try to top deck one. So playing to win here, not playing to lose. I like this strategy.
And I guess it's possible he had a second Unfriendly Fire, and he's actually saying, I'm going to play another blocker now. If I draw a land,
right,
4 power in the air, I might be able to get there. Though I guess Jensen does have at least 1 flyer.
But with the Menace, though, on the Sky Terrors, it's just hard to block. Looks like Owen Turtenwald actually won his match 2-0 already.
And by the looks of the gesturing going on from Jensen, I'm guessing that he's catching Owen up on what's going on in this game and getting a second opinion as to what the paths to victory or indeed loss are on this battlefield. They may be... I mean, they get the opportunity. They have much more information over the landscape of these games than you would normally have because they all drafted together. So this might be Jensen saying, Owen, what do you remember Yao seeing in this draft? Do you think that he has another unfriendly fire? Do you think that there are other tricks perhaps? We, of course, have deck lists, so we have a little bit of a leg up on that one.
Yeah, it turns out Yao does not have a second unfriendly fire.
And Jensen here bounces the Ixali's keeper, so one less blocker.
Yeah, Yao only has that 1-1 now where Huey has a 3-3 menace and a bevy of 2-2s.
So that was a Kinjali's caller being bounced there, the 0-3 that makes dinosaurs cheaper. What is up next for Jensen? Drawing a couple of cards, why not? He's doing this pre-combat, so he will have to discard one of them. Does not need that island. And everyone's coming in. This could be the match right here. And there's the handshake.
Wow, there it is.
Reed Duke doesn't get a chance to get a win on the board with his draft deck. And these guys, they've been in this position so many times before in the finals of another Team GP. Peach Garden Oath, decisive plays there, getting it done very, very quickly. And we will see them in the finals.
Yeah, reigning champions of the previous Team GP. And you know what? It just goes to show. They started X-2 on day one and just rattled off every single win since.
Yeah, I think it was 2-2 was the low
like
point.
that.
I spoke to Owen coming out of the draft, and he's asked him how things were going, and he's like, I'm having a pretty good day. And it's hard to argue with just not losing matches all day long, playing with two of his best friends and getting into the finals of yet another GP. The number of GP top 8s, top 4s that these guys have is truly staggering. And those numbers obviously just getting bolstered with this event.
It just goes to show how much of a skill format this Team Limited really is.
And we can see that things still going on in the other semi-finals. No great surprises there. It's tough to be able to get everything going that fast. Martin User already a game up against John Twardowski, but the other matches still in their game ones, though it looks like Corey Burkhardt just scooping up his cards. Andrew Backstrom's picked up his first game against Will Sullivan. We're going to get a chance to see how game twos go, because look at this. Backstrom, User and Burkhardt all a game up in their matches as well. They were the number one seed, so they were going first in all of those games. But I can tell you this, from having looked at their decks, they have some very aggressive decks going on. And on the other side of things, at least a couple of the decks on the other side of the table are a little bit light on the lower end of the curve, and that just playing into the hands of this aggression.
Yeah, Tim, or you and I, Tim, we watched Corey Burkhardt's draft, and we know he has the green-white pseudo-merfolk dinosaurs. But what did you see from Backstrom and User?
Well, Martin User, I saw the moment that Corey got a first look at Martin User's deck, and he said, do you literally only do one thing in this format? And because Martin User, again, on an aggressive red-white deck, and he seemed moderately apologetic about it, but his deck looks great. He gets to be very, very aggressive. Not surprising to me at all that he was able to pick up the game win in game one. Backstrom, of the three of them, is the slowest deck, though that's not necessarily saying too much. He's still got a fair amount going on in the early turns. He is on red-black, Martin User on red-white, and Corey Burkhardt on green-white. None of them troubled the blue end of the spectrum. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, 2 out of 3 of the team of Sullivan-Twardowski and Delpozzo are playing Merfolk.
Oh no.
The unfortunate thing for that, of course, being that Corey Burkhardt was just taking so many green 2-drops, including a whole bunch of Merfolk, that there's an awkward hole in the curve for both of those decks that were fighting both with each other and indeed with Corey to try and find something to do in the early stages of this game. Yeah,
Backstrom, User, and Burkhardt already up a game each. And you know what? If they win here, we're going to have a pseudo rematch of GP Cleveland.
Yeah, it was Andrew Backstrom, in that case, replaced by Shuhei Nakamura. But Martin User and Corey Burkhardt have played against Peach Garden Oath for a trophy before. Didn't work out quite how they wanted it to that time, but maybe a chance for some revenge now that there's Pirates in the mix.
Yeah, I think Will here might be on a mulligan down to 5.
Yeah, and it may well be that he's just seeking out a little bit of information, a bit of extra opinions from his teammates before he takes that mulligan. But sometimes that's just what you got to do. Looks at the top of his deck and sees just a clutch of land. It may be that was the land that he needed, but ultimately, you know, once you've said your mulliganing, that's the end of that. And Andrew Backstrom here just sort of smiles and nods as he watches his opponent trying to claw something back in this match.
Yeah, it's not impossible to climb back from mulligan to 4. It's just going to be very, very hard. I think I saw Fathom Fleet captain from Will's side, so if he's able to put together a fast creature start, maybe back it up with a removal spell or two, he might be able to still, develop out his board state even with a harsh mulligan.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the interesting thing is that Backstrom's deck has a reasonably large amount of removal, so even if it works out that Will is able to piece something together, he may find that it's going to be a kind of a rough one. A scry and a keep. There's not much land in that hand, so if there's something on top, I'm guessing that must be another land. Nothing early doors from either player. There is the second land coming off the top.
2 4-drops and a 5 in Will's hand. Looks like he had the Fathom Fleet Cutthroat, the Brazen Buccaneers, and I think a Dusk Legion Dreadnought. So Will just looking for lands at this point.
Firebrand coming down early doors for Andrew Backstrom. Nothing else to do on turn 3, so he just pumps it up, gets in for 3. And Andy will not mind just gradually working for card quality where he can. Trading 1 for 1 is great for him because Will Sullivan has started off so down on cards, though the fact that he's hit 3 lands even, a little bit of a small victory for Sullivan. Often that's where things can go wrong. And Andrew Backstrom not really punishing as much as many decks in the format might in the face of such a mulligan.
Yeah, it looks like Andrew's missing on land drop, so this is Will's chance. You could see on the previous turn, Will did a little pump fake. He actually drew a Pirate's Cutlass for the turn, but realized that he'd rather play it after developing out one of his pirates rather.
Yeah, Brazen Buccaneers there, coming in as a 3/3 with haste, and now Will is able to potentially get something together. And you can see there, he's just leaving face up the Dire Fleet Interloper. Also costs 4, also has Menace and Explore. So, yeah, kind of stringing something together here.
Yeah, I think in Will's position, I would have liked to attack. Again, you were mentioning it earlier. You don't want a 1-for-1 trade as Andrew's so far ahead on resources.
Thrasher Raptors coming down for Backstrom. That just a 3/3 for now, but if it works out that he finds a dinosaur, it will turn into a 5/3 trampler. No great surprises as to what's coming next. The Dire Fleet Interloper netting an additional land for Will Sullivan. Kind of a tricky one as to what he would have preferred there. I guess that anything that gets him to draw cards somehow kind of gets him back from all of these mulligans.
Yeah, he wants to hit that land as he has that Dusk Legion Dreadnought in hand, and a 4/6 Vigilance does hold off everything on the board right now, and it does have Vigilance as well, so it's kind of great on offense and defense in this particular position for him.
Backstrom finds his 4th land, so beginning to get things going here and looking on carefully to figure out what he wants to do. The creatures on the other side of the battlefield are actually moderately problematic for him.
Yeah, Andrew Backstrom just has so many options in hand right now. Getting a little stuck on lands, though, but it looks like he's drawn a few out.
Fire Cannon Blast. He does not want to have a 3/3 on the battlefield in addition to everything else that's going on. This means that he's able to attack in pretty safely. If Will Sullivan trades, then that's great for Backstrom. If Will Sullivan takes 5 damage, that's also pretty good for Backstrom. And one way or another, this is kind of what the Pirates deck wants to be doing, getting the red zone rather than having to figure out defenses.
Yeah, it's so tempting for Will to block here, but again, trading 1-for-1 when you're already on a mulligan down to 4 and you were on the play is just so backbreaking.
Alrighty. Backstrom passing things back here. Sullivan, dig, finds another land. If anything, getting a little flooded here. Though, if he gets to cast Spell, that could be pretty solid. There does come the gigantic vehicle.
And I like that play from Will. Not blocking. He knows he has to crew the Dusk Legion Dreadnought. That's his best way to victory at this point in the game, even though Backstrom is, got a grip full of 6 or 7 cards still.
Yeah, crew 2, conveniently the exact power that Will Sullivan has on the battlefield. And at least, on the face of things here, Backstrom is going to have to kind of pump the brakes a little bit. Doesn't really have anything that can attack through the gigantic Dreadnought as things stand. Interesting stuff. So here we see a variety of tribes working for Backstrom. He's got a pirate, he's got a vampire, he's got a dinosaur. That vampire is Anointed Deacon that gets to pump a vampire at the beginning of combat. So it's a little tribal synergy. Unfortunately, at the moment, it's only going to be pumping itself. But at least attacking as a 5-3, he's getting close to be able to get something going. Pirate's Cutlass now being played, immediately going onto that menacing pirate.
Yeah, so Will had a few options here. He drew a Vanquish the weak for the turn, so it looks like he's going to Cutlass and Vanquish here, but still means he does not get to attack very profitably. Other option was playing the Fathom Fleet Cutthroat out and then crewing up the vehicle, potentially attacking it for 4, but of course, Andrew Backstrom would have pretty good blocks with 2/3/3s. So
Will Sullivan and his entire team at their first GP and indeed their first team draft. So a bit of an uphill struggle here, but the fact that they've managed to get this far up the hill already to be in this situation, you know, they're going to be at the Pro Tour now. They are one series of matches, I guess, away from the finals of a GP. Fantastic achievement by them, and would love to see if they can give a bit of a fight to Baeckstrom-Juza and Burkhart here, who were able to pick up the first 3 games comparatively quickly. Backstrom attacking in here in spite of the fact that there's that Dreadnought on the other side of things. Potentially got something to make a block from Sullivan look a little bit tricky.
And you don't have much life to work around here, so I think Will probably should just block the 5-3. I mean, jumping in front of the 2-2 is fine, but now you're committing yourself to taking over half your life in damage from that Anointed Deacon by itself. I think Andrew might even be just fine letting this happen, hitting Will down to 4 and then just following up with another creature, forcing Will to have something.
Yeah, I mean, he's quite happily put his creature in the bin, but Stormfleet Pyromancer, that an extra 2 points of damage, doesn't bother sending any of that at anything other than Will Sullivan's face. 2 creatures on the battlefield, each of them lethal. Will Sullivan needs to have a blocker here just to stay in this game. Does find one, just putting down the Dire Fleet. Which one do we have there? The Fathom Fleet Cutthroat. Just a 3-3 on this board, but, well, as it turns out, the Pirates had a cannon. In this case, the cannon concerned was the
elaborate fire cannon.
Yeah, not an especially efficient card in most senses. Costs you 2 to cast, 4 to use, but deals 2 damage just the same, and that 2 damage means a 2-0 win for Andrew Backstrom. He, the first of his team to notch up a win. Now it's a crazy race between Martin User and Corey Burkhardt to win a game, or indeed a crazy race of both John Twardowski and Cody Delpozzo to string together 2 consecutive wins in order to stave off defeat here in these semi-finals. Getting a chance to look in on Corey Burkhardt against Cody Delpozzo. These are the drafters that we got a chance to see how their actual draft went. Corey described his draft deck as being a little bit of a wreck, but that he hoped that he had successfully given a little bit of trouble to those around him. And by the sounds of it, that's exactly what happened. Cody Delpozzo, he is on Merfolk, but when there are 2 Merfolk decks on the same team that were vying for lots of resources, that means that neither of them necessarily working at full potential. And in the meantime, Corey Burkhardt was taking various things like a Jade Guardian he has in play, which Cody Delpozzo would have loved in his list.
Yeah. Corey actually first picked that Colossal Dreadmar, I believe, out of the Pack 3. Remember passing the Boneyard Parlay, Lightning Strike, and Contract Killing. And, well, it seems to be doing amazing work here on this board.
Yeah, life totals 21 to 11, meaning that Corey Burkhardt not too much more required, and he will potentially be able to get into the air with that Pterodon Knight. All he needs is a dinosaur. We know there's one in hand. There it comes. So now there's a 3-3 flyer to worry about, and Corey pretty brisk about getting into this red zone.
Yeah, unfortunate for Cody that Ixali's Diviner did not get the +1/+1 counter, and so it can't jump in front of that Jade Guardian very well.
5 mana, though, thanks to all that treasure. So we do have a play, and it's a play that we've seen all weekend long from Merfolk. Windstrider, the Flash 3-3, coming along, and now it's just a matter of what he wants to block. Ultimately, decides that getting the hexproof creature off the table is preferable to dealing with a flyer. I can kind of understand that. If you have other bounce spells, other removal spells, one of them gets targeted, one of them doesn't. But Corey Burkhardt, life total's 15 to 11. Just trying to find a way to finish things up here.
It looks like Cody has a Pounce in his hand. We saw them take that during the draft. I think he had an opportunity at a second one, but did not pick it up.
Yeah, Corey Burkhardt had lots of opportunities at Pounce, did not take them, instead focusing on just having the creatures that means that he's able to get an early lead and then push that one home. All right, we have more creatures coming from Corey's side of things. This basically how he drew it up. He wants to be casting creatures throughout this game. Emissary of Sunrise there, letting him explore. And unfortunately for Corey, while the card on top is a very potent one, revealing combat tricks to your opponent, not necessarily what you want to be doing if you can help it. Does get the +1/+1 counter, needs to decide whether or not he wants to keep Slash of Talons on top, ultimately putting it in the graveyard.
Yeah, especially when Cody has a Siren Storm Tamer on the battlefield just to negate the Slash should Corey have kept it.
All right, big swings coming in here from Dino plus Friend.
And this is a pivotal turn. Remember, Cody's team already down. Oh, well, they just got a result on Martin Uses as well.
Yeah, Martin User 2-0. And Corey Burkhardt just pointing out that his Pterodon Knight does have flying, which makes blocks there that much more complicated. This is essentially Corey Burkhardt seeing whether or not he can reinforce a full 6-0 sweep. But we do now have our finals. It's going to be Backstrom, User, and Burkhardt trying to get revenge on the Peach Garden Oath after the last GP, Team GP Cleveland. There's the handshake. It's all over. We have our finals. Do not go anywhere. We'll be back for our last draft of Grand Prix Providence right after these messages.